You're in the interview process. Things seem hopeful. You're progressing through. But then you have a moment. It is a vague answer to a question, or it's a funny vibe you're getting, or it can be a strange task you're asked to do. And your gut is telling you something is off. This video is a reminder for you to pause, because what you don't want to do is 3 months, 6 months later, when you're miserable at a job, go, shoot, I knew something was off. I should have stopped. I should have asked more questions. You know, there are red flags that are not so obvious. I mean, when somebody is being rude to you, that's really obvious that there's a red flag there. But there are other things that are a little bit subtle. And you need to be able to understand what's going on, why your gut is telling you this, and how to explore more about what you're feeling. Today's video, I'm going to talk about 3 of those red flags in an interview that are often overlooked, but could be a problem. The first red flag you should think about is when you're asked to do test projects. Now, projects as part of the interview process are becoming more common. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it helps that employer see what you actually do, not just what you say you can do, but what you actually do. And for a candidate, especially if you're really good, then you can show how you can run circles around your competition. So it can be a good thing as part of the process. Now, the problem comes when they say, oh, it will be a quick project, or you can come up with this proposal, or, we just want to see how you think. And they give you the assignment, and you go, wait a minute. This looks like an actual problem that this organization has. And wait a minute, this is going to take a long time for me. It's not just a few minutes. It may not even be a few hours. It could be a lot of hours to do. And you're like, what? I'm not comfortable with this, because this sounds like free work. You're not getting paid for it. And if you do it, you might not even get the job. And I know there's been a lot of job seekers who have done these sorts of projects, and then they find out their work was actually used to help the business. So maybe it was part of a business plan, or it was copy that was part of a website. So this is a problem. So look at the assignment you were given and ask yourself, is this something that would benefit this organization to have right now? And would this be something that normally a paid employee would do? You want to think about that, because this is an integrity issue with that organization. You should not be a free consultant. Now, if they're wanting to do, testing you in this type of project work, they could give you a case study. They could give you a hypothetical, or they could actually pay you for your time. But if they are not, and you think there's a good chance they will use what you did for free, yes, that is a red flag. I really appreciate a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. It really helps. A second thing to be concerned about is if you cannot get specifics about what success looks like in the role. Now, you get to the end of the interview, they ask you if you have questions, and you're like, yeah, I got questions. Can you tell me how I would know if I'm successful in the role? And you know what? You get answers like, well, it depends. Or, we're still trying to figure that out. Or, this is a really fast-paced environment, and we really need the person to be flexible. Now, those aren't great responses. And if someone gives you those responses, you should think, that's not good. Now, A role might not be totally defined. It could be if it's a new role, or it could be that if it's a new manager, they're not exactly sure 100% about what they are looking for in the role. And that isn't necessarily a cause of concern. But you have to be clear that they understand the job, because they understanding the job means that you can understand the expectations. So sometimes a role is not well defined if it is pushed through very quickly by leadership and it hasn't been thought out well. It could be expectations aren't well defined because it's a new manager. They maybe have never oversaw anybody who's done this role or not done it themselves. Or it could be that the organization is in a lot of chaos and they're just looking for a smart person to figure it out. But the problem is, if you don't know what success looks like, then how do you know what the expectations are? And it's real easy to have different priorities given to you and you to become very stressed because you have no idea if you're succeeding or not. So a good thing to do when you get a vague response is to try to pin them down. You can ask something like, I really would be interested in knowing, exactly what you're looking for the person who took this role to do in 3 to 6 months. So I get a sense of that. If you do not get any straight answers, if you still get vague answers, that is a red flag, and be forewarned. Red flag number 3 is hints from people that the workload or the culture might not be that great. So not everyone is going to come out and tell you that this is what's happening, but sometimes there is hints that something is amiss. No one's going to come out and say, oh, the culture here is really toxic. No. But they might say something like, it can be very intense at times, but we find a way to work it out. Or, you'll burn out. They don't say that, but they say, yeah, you'll definitely stay busy. Sometimes it's coded language, which tells you, if you're listening, that it could be a case where there's not enough resources or you're going to be micromanaged. So here are some things to look out for when you're interviewing. An indication that something might be amiss is when you might have more than one interviewer and they say something and they look at the other person or have this look like, oops, I shouldn't have said that. Be aware of that. Or an interviewer is being very vague about your questions you asked, or they're kind of hedging a little bit and then they quickly change the subject. Or someone actually could be honest and say something, and if there's more than one person that's interviewing, they could kind of mitigate that or say that's not really true, or something to indicate that they weren't happy with that response and they're going to correct this. Okay? So you need to watch out for this. I would also ask you to watch for what is happening in that office if you are there, because you can also get a sense of the vibe of the place. So you generally want to see a place where people look happy. They might have a little conversation, but it seems an upbeat place. If you see the opposite, people heads down in cubes, not talking to each other, it seems like it's not a fun place, a happy place. You want to take note of that, because that could be a sign that the culture isn't that great. So what can you do? Well, first of all, I would ask a lot of questions. I would want to know things like, well, the person that was previously in this position, what made them successful or not? Or what's something that surprises or challenges people in this environment? Or even something like, when things get intense here, how does leadership support the team? Listen to the answers. Are they specific? Do they make sense? Or are they defensive? Are they deflecting? Or are they talking in circles? They will tell you through their body language and what they say, how they truly feel and what they want to say and what they don't want to say. Your job is to listen. Often it's the not so obvious red flags that trip people up. The obvious ones like, a interviewer being rude to you or a salary mismatch. Yeah, those you can deal with right off the top. But when this is not as apparent, you might get a feeling like, well, am I overthinking things, or am I being too picky about things? Or if you really need the job, maybe this is the only shot I'm going to get and I need to take it. And I want you to think about that first, because when you feel discomfort, that is data for you. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to walk away, doesn't. But what you do need to do is when that gut of yours is saying, something's not right, listen to it. Seek clarity. Ask questions, because you do not want to walk into dysfunction. So, what I'll ask you to do is when you see any of these three, one, trust your gut. It is telling you. Ask hard questions. See how they answer them. And remember, if you decide to walk away, which you absolutely can do, that may actually help you find the place where you can thrive. Remember that. Drop in the comments if you ever have experienced any of these red flags. I'd like to hear about your experience.